Just you and I, Jason?
I had to run upstairs and get my daughter's light off her desk so I could get some more light on me. It's getting dark.
Need more light to show those highlights in your hair?
Yeah, natural ones.
Just so you know, we are live streaming. Just so everyone knows, the live streaming has started. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just on a brief recess. We will reconvene in a few moments.
Stupid computer.
For those of you in the viewing audience, we will be with you momentarily. We're just completing a short recess. To the members of council, the delegates are just logging back on now. We're just waiting for one more councillor and we'll be able to resume. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have all the councilors backlogged on. So we have a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that council adjourn the in-camera session and that council do now rise with no report. All those in favor? All those against? Motion carried. Thank you.
Now you're back to the motion from
Yes.
before.
So now we're back to the motion put forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink, that council receive report number 2020-0036 planning pertaining to site plan control file SP-03-19 and that the bylaw and site plan agreement for Part 5 on RP 59R-16105 be submitted for approval by council at the next regular meeting, authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the site plan agreement with the purchaser 2494557 Ontario Inc. Comments or questions on this report? Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion to address...
Councillor Hildebrand, could you please lean into your microphone? Councillor Hildebrand, please lean in a bit. Thank you.
Is this better?
A little bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion to add a fence across the back of their parking lot entering into the Meridian Center parking lot on the north side of Summerside. The walkway going in is fine for the residents off the Summerside, but I want the walkway closed off at the motion to close off the back of the lot to the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on the amendment?
I need a seconder.
Oh, first of all, I'm sorry, yes, we need a seconder for that amendment. Is there a seconder for the amendment? And I see Councillor Hahn is seconding that amendment. Any discussion on that amendment? Okay, not seeing any. I'll call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Okay, and any opposed? Okay, the amendment carries. So now, back to the original motion. I don't think I have to read it again unless, I'm sorry? Oh, yes, so back to the motion, back to the motion as amended. Any other discussions, questions on that? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor? Okay, great. Thank you. And any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion as amended carries. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the developers, your section is now complete. So the motion was approved as amended. You heard the amendment, and the bylaw will come forward to council on April 20th. And you are free to leave the meeting if you wish.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We look forward to working with you further and seeing this development become a reality and contribute to the overall benefit of this community. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you for bringing this development to the community. It is nice to see some affordable housing coming to Pelham. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Motion put forward by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1, Special Councils -05 2020, March 17th, 2020. 2, Council -05 2020, March 23rd, 2020, and Special Council 06-2020, March 23rd, 2020. Any comments or questions arising from these minutes? Not seeing any. I will call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Minutes carried. Motion's carried. Read that.
Just the term.
Okay.
First, you need to ask if there were any items to lift.
Oh, yes. So now we're at the consent agenda, part of the agenda. Is there any consent agenda items that any councillor would like to lift? Not seeing any. Then I'll put this motion forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the April 6, 2020 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive report number 2020-46 as it pertains to 1084 Quaker Road, file number AM-01-20, and that Council approve the bylaw attached hereto as Appendix D, amending the zoning of the property subject from the site-specific residential 1-26 R1-26 zone to the site-specific residential 1 R1-298 zone. Comments or questions on this motion? Councillor Wink.
So the director in their recommendation, as well as the property owner, stated that the property to the west of the subject is a triplex. This property was likely a triplex prior to the surrounding homes being developed as R1. People buying the homes in the area were fully aware of this one particular property. The subject property has been operating as a duplex for the past number of years. I think it was close to 20, with no issues to the neighbors. I will say that here's a case where someone went ahead, put in a unit, didn't get a building permit. It was never applied for, and it is currently an illegal use. Under normal circumstances, I would not agree to change its zoning to a duplex because I believe it does not conform to the surrounding neighborhood. That said, I will support this application for compassionate reasons on the proviso that the second unit meets with town fire regulation and building code.
Thank you, Councillor Wink. Councillor Hahn.
Yes, you, Mayor. I'm a bit confused when it comes to this particular report because my understanding after listening to Ms. Laney, who presented to us the very first time, my understanding was that there was actually 2 rental units. So 2 rental units plus the main dwelling would be a triplex. It'd be 3 units in the house. So is there 3 units in the house or 2 units in the house? And what exactly, when they say we're to approve a duplex, does that mean that Ms. Laney will be removing one of her tenants from the other dwelling and removing that dwelling unit?
So we'll ask the Director of Planning to comment on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So you'll recall that the Lenny's got a building permit to permit a granny suite sometime in the 1990s. That granny suite is on the main floor of the house, and it is interconnected with the main dwelling of the house. It has an interconnected entrance, doorway. And so it is now considered to be part of that dwelling. Although it's a granny suite, it is interconnected. It's not a separate dwelling unit. The second dwelling unit is in the basement, and that is not interconnected with the house. It has its own entrance and exit. And so that is the dwelling unit that they want to legalize. The granny suite is occupied, my understanding is, by a tenant. I don't believe that there's any intention of removing that tenant, but that granny suite was legally constructed. They did receive building permit for it, and it does meet the requirement for a single detached dwelling because it's interconnected with the existing dwelling. The second dwelling unit, as Councillor Wink indicated, they will need a building permit for that, and that will mean that they are required to meet building code and fire code requirements for that second dwelling unit that they constructed without the benefit of permit.
Thank you for that, Ms. Weens. Councillor Stewart. Oh, we lost you. Wait. Okay, go ahead, Councillor. Oh, I don't think you have your mic on.
Okay, sorry about that. It's my understanding that a granny suite is, in addition, part of the house for a relative to live in. The relative is long gone and it's simply being used as a rental unit. I understood that when you had a granny suite, it had a 10-year lifespan, And if you still had your senior living with you, you can apply for an extension. This isn't the case. So at this point, they're using it strictly as a rental unit. So it is a triplex. And at Ms. Laney's original presentation in December, oh, my brain stopped. I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
Oh, maybe we'll come back to you. Okay, Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In talking to the chief building inspector, I was of the opinion that this granny suite was converted into a rental unit by having a complete kitchen, which is a requirement for a rental unit. So to me, it's no longer defined as a granny suite, because a granny suite, as far as I know, under the building code, does not have a complete kitchen facility. So therefore, in my definitions, this right now is a triplex, and it's not really a duplex. So really, the question I'm asking is, are they going to just have one extra unit, not two? Because obviously they told us they didn't want to get rid of their tenants. So how are we going to make a decision if they've virtually told us they don't want to comply with just two units?
Councilor or Director of Planning, I misunderstood. I thought that the granny suite it is adjoined to the house by an interconnecting doorway. But so is that the one now that has the senior tenant living in it now, or is the senior tenant down in the basement?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I'm not exactly sure if it's a senior tenant living in that granny suite or in the basement unit. I don't know. What I can say is that granny suite was approved. We do have the building permit drawings for it. When we go in and do whatever inspections we need to do with respect to the second dwelling unit that they want to have, and then whatever renovations that they want to have to their building or to their home to make it accessible. If we see that there is other work that was done without a permit to that granny suite, they'll be required to get permits for that. With respect to Councillor Stewart's questions about a granny suite being a temporary use, she is correct that there is provision under the Planning Act that allows for a temporary use bylaw for what's referred to as granny suites, and they are temporary for a period of 10 years, and those are adopted by bylaw. When this in-law suite or granny suite was constructed, they did not apply for a zoning bylaw amendment for a temporary use for a granny suite because it is integrated within their dwelling. It is part of a single detached dwelling, and it was not a separate dwelling unit, which would make it a separate granny suite for a temporary use provision. So it didn't qualify for that. My understanding is when that was first constructed, they did have one of the parents living with them. That parent has since passed on, but since then they have been renting that space out. It's no different than anybody who would be renting, space in your house to a tenant for a long term. That can happen, and so this is still that portion of the house is still considered to be the single dwelling. It's the basement unit that is the illegal unit.
Thank you.
And to be clear, to also clarify, they applied for the duplex. They did not apply for a triplex. They do not want a triplex. They've made this application for a duplex.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Hahn. We need your mic.
You hear me now?
Yep, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, this is Chief of Planning. Just so I understand, so if we were to approve this, would this not set precedence then for that, for not just that particular area, but a great deal of that area around Haste and Welland, for other folks to do the same thing? In other words, with Councillor Wink, he had suggested doing it on a compassionate note, but would this not then set the precedence for other people to ask, and then we would be in a situation where we'd have to grant for a lot of other individuals? Or perhaps the CAO would like to these waves.
Mr. CAO?
Sorry, there's no non-subtle way to do that in this system.
Yeah.
Look, that is an entirely reasonable concern, Councillor, and ultimately, I can't give you, we can't responsibly give you an absolute, an answer with absolute certainty. If hypothetically there were to be a council decision in the positive, but that referenced humanitarian and compassionate grounds, that would certainly very much help us distinguish this scenario from future scenarios. At the end of the day, every single application is supposed to be judged on its merits. So would it create a precedent? Well, I can't tell you that we've never done this before. We haven't been employed here that long, but I can tell you, yes, it has that capacity, but certainly if you do it for humanitarian and compassionate grounds, and the fact that every application has to be looked at on its own merits would suggest to me that that need not be the determinative factor for one's decision. So, I mean, is that a perfect answer? No, it could in the future inform some other application that you wouldn't be supportive of. But at the end of the day, council gets to make this decision, council gets to make future decisions, and it need not, you can't bind yourself. That's a basic legal maxim. Court of Justice can make a decision, can say you're guilty of speeding on this charge and not guilty on the next one. It doesn't bind itself. Superior Court can't bind itself. This council can't bind itself. You can decide yay here and nay on the next one, or nay here and yay on the next one, because you hear each one on its merits. So in this case, we're not that worried about precedent, but we're particularly not that worried in the event that you went in the affirmative because of humanitarian and compassionate grounds.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Stewart. Oops.
Hi, sorry about earlier. My thoughts are back on track. When she first presented to us in December, she told us that her neighbors all knew about it and they were all fine with it. But then when it came back to council, and we did find that she had neighbors that were opposed to it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Hildebrand?
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to address the Director of Planning again. I understand that you're saying that our Chief Building Inspector will be going in to ensure that we only have 2 units in that apartment. So that ensures that we don't have 3 kitchens and all the other pieces that are required to have 3 rental units in that property. Is that correct?
Director of Planning?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I can't say that it'll ensure there won't be 3 kitchens. There are lots of single detached homes that have 2 kitchens in them. What it has to meet is all the building code requirements and for that. So just because you have 2 kitchens does not necessarily make it a separate dwelling unit.
Thank you. Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mayor. So this goes to, I guess, the Director of Planning as well. So if we did not approve this, then essentially this couple then would not be able to make their changes to suit his handicap access needs, correct? So that is essentially what the question then is basically if we say no to this, then ultimately they can't move forward with making the alterations to the home that they need. at all. That's 100%. Can't do it.
Mr. Mayor, through you, that's correct. Currently, right now, we're in a position where we can't issue any building permit for the renovations that they want to do for accessible reasons, because the dwelling currently does not comply with the zoning bylaw.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I guess just for the going forward, I'd like to also put my 2 cents in that I'm all for this application. If council wants, if there is indeed a concern about setting a precedent, then I would suggest that well within our boundaries to go with humanitarian compassionate grounds. I mean, this couple had it wasn't their doing to be involved in this horrific accident. They've been in this house for 30, 40 years. They just want to make it accessible so they can live there for more years to come. So anyway, any other questions, comments on this? I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. Then I'll call the vote. I believe I already read it. We know what we're voting on. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands, please. Oh, wait. Okay, Lisa, I'm sorry. Councillor Hahn?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, before you actually put this to vote, I'd like to make an amendment, and that if we are to approve this, that it would be, in fact, for humanitarian and compassionate grounds.
Yes, okay, good. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. I'll turn to the clerk. Madam Clerk. Oh, we need a seconder.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do need a seconder. I see Councillor Wink with his hand up.
Yep.
Just to make an amendment that the approval cite that it is made on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. That will be the amendment, and then vote on it as amended if that passes.
Okay, so any discussion on the amendment offered by Councillor Hahn? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Okay, a motion, the amendment passes. Then back to the motion. I'll ask one last time. Is there any other questions, comments on the motion itself as amended? Not seeing any. I'll ask all those in favor of the motion as amended. Okay, excellent. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Motion put forward by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive report number 2020-0033 and that Council approve the whistleblower policy attached as Appendix A. Comments or questions on this report? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Motion brought forward by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Benefit analysis. 2020-0034, Chief Administrator Officer. Be it resolved that the Council receive report number 2020-0034 and that Council direct the Human Resources Department and Treasurer to utilize the town's insurance broker to obtain quotations for benefits coverage starting October 2020, and that Council approve the extension of benefits coverage to include elected officials while maintaining the capacity for elected officials to decline said coverage starting October 2020. Questions or comments on this report? Councillor Hildebrand.
For you, Mr. Mayor, one of the comments made was that the region's benefit package was not as superior as our benefit package. And what I'd like to suggest as an alternative, I've seen corporations and companies use other larger organizations to get their benefits, and then come up with their own top-up procedure. And I would think this should also be something that should be considered when they're reviewing the benefit package for the town of Pelham.
Mr. CAO, care to comment on the councillor's comments?
We bring this to you as an opportunity. We hope to save money. We also hope to extend coverage. Benefits are really enormously tricky, particularly when you attempt to it's not that it's not impossible to partner with other organizations, but what is difficult comes from other organizations that have collective agreements. We do not yet have one in place here in the town of Pelham, but we all believe or anticipate we're going to have one later this calendar year. So that already greatly influences the corporation's approach and review of what of the substantive content of the various bids on the benefits. It's quite difficult for us to simply try to merge or go in with other groups that have multiple collective agreements, because they'll all have differing levels of coverage, et cetera, et cetera. The elegance of this solution here in a very difficult year where obviously most of our attention is elsewhere, it's not on staff benefits, frankly. That's not a top 20 concern. But at this point in time, the market, we believe, is experiencing a lot of anxiety and a lot of turmoil and a lot of worry that that business is going to go down. We have the opportunity to have a broker with whom we have a good relationship go out and test the market on our behalf, get as many bids as we can, and then be able to compare those to what we currently have. Essentially, the town didn't do something as wide-ranging as this, but it did 2 years ago go out to market and get itself much better pricing than it previously had. So that's what led to the relationship with the current provider. We'd like to test those waters again. And we suspect, because of our timing and the fact that we'd be an excellent client, that we're likely to get some highly competitive bids. At least for this year and for now, with the resources, we have a human resources department of one. She wrote this, she's put some thought into it. She produced this very good report. She's actually, I think she's in on this call. Yes, Brianna, she's a B. So perhaps I should let her speak to this. But with what we can have someone else do the work on our behalf and bring us back, hopefully, competitive bids that are, whether it's with our current provider or a different provider, we'd like to end up in a better spot and try to save the taxpayers some money this year. What we've suggested to you involves someone else doing all of the work and possibly us getting all of the gain. And frankly, based on our staffing and based on a whole bunch of other things we have to be focused on, I don't have a realistic way this calendar year to look at what you're suggesting. It's not that what you suggest has no merit. It does have merit, sir. But this is a way forward that should get us some savings that works with our resourcing level this year. So we hope this turns into a great news story about 3.5 months from now, 4 months from now. We're very proud of what the work Brianne has done to bring this to this point to you. And someone else is going to carry the ball the rest of the way. What you're suggesting might be in the cards next year or the year after. But this year, just based on our resource, not so much our resourcing, but our focus, primarily because of Corona, it's elsewhere and doing other things. And this is kind of the best we can do this year. We hope it's going to be very good and deliver some savings for the ratepayer and either better protection or better service for your staff.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Hahn.
Through you, Mayor, a question with regards to the premiums. So is this the type of plan that somebody can slice and dice how they see fit? So certain people have certain desires. You might want to have more group insurance, or I'm just looking at the list here, accident insurance versus like when you've got your extended health, you get an allotment, so to speak, and then you can pick where you want it. Is this something that we're looking at, or is this just set? It's you have to take all 3 or all 4 of these for a total of 173, or you can pick what you want. Do you know what I'm saying? Is that how that works?
I do appreciate your question. Our current plan doesn't work like that. We are open within our spending envelope and within the level of benefits we already provide. Within those 2 pieces, we're looking forward to seeing what sort of options and products the broker brings back. So rather than us going around to 20 companies, the broker's going to do that. And I expect some very different sort of some options that may be exactly what you're describing, by the by. But we'll see what Manulife, Sun Life, Green Shield, our current, et cetera, are prepared to provide us, and then hopefully we'll have the benefit of choice.
And not wanting to put her on the spot, does the Director of Human Resources have any comments on this report?
No, I was going to answer Councillor Hahn's question, but the CAO did that very well. So yeah, I don't have anything to say right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wink.
So as part of this report, it talks about benefits for the councillors, and I appreciate the fact that you're trying to have our backs. But when I look at it, it's around $5,300 per year per councillor if they went with the family plan, which would equate to $37,662.24 of additional taxpayers' dollars. You make comment in there that that by not having a benefit plan could be a deterrent for people running for council. I could, from my perspective, I didn't run for council for the pay, and I think most people didn't, because if it was for the pay, we should have our heads read. I think a better question would be, what do other area councillors receive in health benefits, if any, as part of their compensation package? And really, what are they being compensated?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I do know that Lincoln and Fort Erie do provide benefits to their councillors. They have a similar range of benefits to their staff, less the long-term disability, which is similar to our councillor benefit class. Also, I just want to point out that we still would have this be an optional benefit to councillors. You guys don't have to opt in if you don't need it, or if you don't need the dental and extended health coverage, you can opt out of that as well. So the number you put forward is if all of you joined on the family plan for all of the benefits, and some of you may or may not need that. So it's just something we're putting out there to those that do need it, and those that don't have to join.
So what's the incentive for me to opt out if everybody else is opting in, and I can go out and get some extra massages?
I mean, truly there wouldn't be. David, if you want to answer that one.
If I may, I don't want to end up in the bizarre situation of arguing with you to try to provide benefits to you. So appreciate the inherent awkwardness of this. But firstly, and I will have council recall that unfortunately you took a 25% pay cut in your first month in office. Mm-hmm. That was a time bomb left to you by the previous council, and it put you in an impossible position. But without a principled basis, you're earning 25% less than your predecessors did. That's a starting point. Secondly, our corporate values are consistent, and you're just this aberration where you're the only people associated with the town who we don't insure have appropriate dental coverage, who we don't insure have proper optometry. I'm not suggesting you do this for yourselves. Literally, it would be difficult for me to suggest that to my bosses and try to gift you something. Whether you do or not is absolutely immaterial to the corporation. You set this up so that there's a 35-year-old with 5 kids who does want to, and that benefit's actually worth more to them than your very miserly pay. And they're not running so that their kids can have braces. They're running because they care about the community. But it's in keeping with our corporate values, and it helps those who actually need it. I respect that there's council covers a wide socioeconomic and age divergent group. So there may well be, I'm talking about a future person, I don't know who he or she is, that may very well need this. It's in keeping with our corporate values. At this point in time, there is some reason to think that we're going to be able to bring back a new insurance policy that will cost less and cover more people. That is our goal. That's our A+ home run win. We think we can do that. You can make that decision at the end of the day, so long as you don't bring a motion this evening prohibiting us from trying to look at extending benefit coverages to your positions. We'll be able to come back with that data, make that decision down the road. We think it's appropriate that we at least look in keeping with our corporate values. We think it's a good retention tool, and it's a retention tool in light of you taking a 25% pay cut that had no principled basis whatsoever. So if you don't do it for yourselves, do it for people who want to run in the next election.
So just to be clear, our predecessors didn't make that decision to take that pay cut as far as, and it wasn't a pay cut, we just don't get the tax advantages. This council made the decision to take that haircut.
Yep, thank you for the clarification, Councillor. Councillor Hahn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand too that, bearing in mind, I think regional councillors also get a benefit package, and they also make about 2.5 times what a municipal councillor makes. Is that correct?
Let me answer that. So, unless David, if you're going to answer, please put your mic on.
Oh, it was on.
No, Dave. Oh, wow, I couldn't hear David. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. CAO.
Mr. Cripps, your mic is off now.
Off.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Dave.
So let me answer that as regional representative, as mayor and regional representative. I get the same as mayor as I do for regional. No, I guess I get a couple. I really don't look at it that often. I get more for being a regional representative than I do for mayor, whether I think one is 32, maybe 34,000 for mayor, and I believe the other one is 39 or maybe even 40,000 for the regional. And then for health benefits, I get 1,200 for dental, and then I get another $1,200 allowance. You don't really, I didn't take it the first year. Another $1,200 for either glasses, shoes, or whatever. So it comes out to $2,400 that we get from the insurance provider. Any other questions about hopefully about the report? Not seeing any, then I will put my glasses on and call the vote. So on the benefits analysis, we're directing the Human Resources and Treasurer to utilize the Cowan's insurance broker to obtain quotations for benefits coverage starting October 20th. And that council approve the extension of benefits coverage to include elected officials while maintaining the capacity for elected officials to decline said coverage starting October 2020th. The one last time. Any other questions or and questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item on the agenda is the report on the COVID-19 update. So we'll start with the fire chief.
Oh, I see he joined us. Just being a blank square the whole night. Welcome aboard, Chief Limburner.
Thank you. No, I've been here the whole time. I just don't like staring at a computer. So, Mayor, Council, senior staff, just to give you a brief update on what's going on with the COVID situation. Most definitely, we're in difficult times. And,
Mr. Chief, Fire Chief Bob, if you could just speak a little bit louder, please.
So I'm just saying is that we're in some very difficult times and uncharted waters. I'd like to first say that thank you for all the members of the Emergency Operations Group that we meet every day. And as a group, we're really, I think we're doing a great job. So thank you to all the members of that group that are assisting me in decision making and the things we're changing, the policies. So some of the current situations, Niagara has 159 cases, Ontario 4,347. Today's increase in the province was the lowest increase since March 31st. So there's a little bit of light there, if you want to call it, which is very positive. Canada has 16,498 cases. Again, we analyze these numbers, and the rate of increase seems to be slowing somewhat. And I think the next 7 days or so, maybe 10 days, are really going to tell the story if the efforts, and I believe our efforts in the province, in the region, and in Niagara or in Pelham are making a big difference. So 238 municipalities have declared emergency with 58 First Nations. The largest in Niagara, the largest age group affected at this point is between 45 and 49 years old. 95% of all cases are considered mild by health professionals. Only 5% are severe, but what's very staggering is 95% of all deaths are seniors. So within that 5% group, you're talking 95% of all the deaths are within the seniors. Target group, vulnerable group, we need to protect our seniors. So right now, as of today, we have 5 care facilities that have reported outbreaks in the region. And again, this unfortunately is going to result in more casualties amongst our seniors. As far as the fire department goes, pretty well business as usual. We're still responding to calls. Our volume is down somewhat because we did do an adjustment with EMS with the types of calls we're going to. We streamlined some of the medical responses, a lot to do with PPE, where we have a severe shortage of personal protective equipment, and we've seen a decline in those calls. Training, I canceled training about 3 weeks ago, but we moved our training online. So a number of staff or firefighters were proceeding with online training to kind of keep them active. So as far as Pelham goes, the town, the seniors through our service groups, the seniors helpline has been set up. So there's the last time I was reported, I think the service groups had delivered some 600 meals through the week, which is amazing. They also reach out to seniors for any other things they need. Maybe you might need something picked up at the drugstore or picked up at the grocery store. So that seems to be working very well. What businesses are open. We kind of do the patrols. We've been out and about. And the ones that are open are doing a great job. They're limiting the access into their buildings. They're constantly cleaning. Whether you go to the beer store, liquor store, the grocery store, they're all doing a great job controlling the movement of people. And again, we can't stress enough to stay home. We need to get people to stay home. General public, it seems to be compliant. We are getting complaints through Bylaw, and we're working pretty closely with the NRP on these non-compliance complaints. They're not overwhelming, but as an overall opinion, I think the general public is doing a good job playing by the rules. We started to receive migrant workers April the 1st. As of today, there's 5 farms that have received 41 workers. These people are required to be quarantined for 14 days, and that's been policed by the public health. And today we posted COVID warning signs around Fenwick and in Fonthill with that are in Spanish. So these migrant workers that you see around town, they're going to start showing up after the 14 days. We have a little bit of communication in Spanish so they better understand what we require of them. As far as some of the issues that we're really working on is that PPE, personal protective equipment, N95 masks are not available. Most of the supply has been reallocated to the frontline workers like the nurses who need them. We're having a difficult time finding them, buying them, and getting them shipped. There's a fair number of inventory that's been held at the border by our U.S. counterparts. So we're waiting for some updates on if we're going to be able to get some more masks. All our parks have been closed. The amenity has been closed. As of today, we have put orange barricades across all the driveways, entrances to the parks, and we have everything signed, along with the play equipment has been signed. Not to use it, hasn't been cleaned, it's not disinfected. Council, I sent out an email today requesting that all meetings, including council meetings, be moved to the virtual way of doing things. I can't stress enough that, especially in our environment, if you look around the room, there's, including myself, we have a number of people in their 60s, and we're a target group, and I don't need to be hanging around with you people or anybody else that possibly could bring stuff into the workplace. So I know it's a little bit of a hard choice. I don't have the authority to force that upon you. It's just a very strong recommendation that everybody abide by the virtual world as we move forward. So thank you for your cooperation. Public health is not recommending the public wearing masks. They pose a greater risk, mainly due because donning and doffing, the general public does not understand how to take a mask or put a mask on or take it off, and they end up touching their face more. They actually pose a greater threat to the public. With the shortage of masks around, we don't need any other reasons to deplete our inventories. So we've implemented a self-screening tool with all the staff. So all staff are required to do the self-screening prior to coming to work. If they answer yes to any of the symptom questions or any of the other questions on the report, they are not to come into the building. They're not to come to work. They're to contact their supervisor. All buildings are being cleaned regularly, including the fire halls. Trucks and vehicles are being cleaned after each use. All employees that operate vehicles operate them alone. We're not allowing any more than one person in a vehicle at a time. And the region has set up a hotline for non-compliance, and through our Bylaw department and the NRP, we're fielding these questions and we are responding. At this point, we're more in an education mode. We will, and the NRP will, hand out citations if we do not get compliance, but to date we pretty well get compliance. So like I said, overall I think that we're heading down the right path. I think our efforts, although very strict, I think they're working. In the next, like I said, the next week or so should tell the tale if we're going to come out of this in the near future. So that's about the end of my report. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, and before I open it up to the rest of council, I just want to say that I take part in 95% of the meetings that happen every morning from 9 till usually around 10 o'clock. By the time we discuss everything, it just impresses me, Bob, the dedication that you're showing to the team, to the town, and the guidance you're showing to the team, and everybody is, just, we discuss problems, anything that comes up, team comes up with solutions, and it's great to see that the corporation is responding as well as any other municipality in the country to the problems as they arise. And on a broader note, it just blows me away. I go on with one website that shows all the countries and the horrendous deaths. And I realize these countries have are somewhat bigger number-wise, Canada being at 37 million. But when you see Italy at 14,000, Spain is at 13,000 deaths, states are racking up almost 2,000 a day now. It just goes to show that these things that we're doing in Canada, the social distancing, and we shut everything down, and self-isolation, it's got to be helping, because like I say, 37 million, and you look, and I forgot the number you said there, Bob, but I believe around 300 deaths countrywide, maybe a little more than that, but 300 compared to thousands and thousands and thousands. And it is, as you pointed out, the numbers are starting another couple of days, another couple of weeks. Hopefully we're going to see the numbers start to go down, and we won't hit these horrific forecasts that could happen. And the only reason we won't hit them is if everybody just keeps diligent, stay home, and do this social distancing. It's I think it's a real good story for all of Canadians to be proud of. Anyway, that being said, I'll open up to any questions to council. Any comments? Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, this is to the fire chief. We have some portable lit signs, the signs that light up and you can change the words. Often you do turkey raffle, so on and so forth. Are we using those? And if not, why? And can we start using them? We should be doing some messaging out there with whatever signs we have and positioning them in key locations throughout the town.
Yeah, to answer your, through you, Mr. Mayor, Station 2's electronic sign, we use that. We have been putting messages out on that. As far as that goes, I am not in control of any other signs. I don't know if the town actually has any other electronic signs that we can change messaging on. That's Vicky for that.
But there's a sign that usually is in front of the 20 highway station there. I haven't seen it. If maybe I missed it, but I'm just wondering what happened to that sign.
That's a readograph sign, one that they physically changed the letters on. That doesn't belong to the fire department or the town. That's for the they use it for functions like turkey raffles and so forth.
Would it be worthwhile bringing back the turkey raffle sign and changing it from talking turkeys to talking some important COVID messaging? How much would that cost? I mean, how much could they really charge for a sign if we rented it for the next several months?
Well, it wouldn't cost us anything. I'd just ask them to let us use it. So
I think that would be a proactive measure to get some messaging out there, whether it's for the support network or whether it's, there's a myriad of things you could pick from to message, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Certainly, if council would like to approve a new electronic sign out front, I'd gladly put
Dream on.
I do have one other question too, if that's okay. And that, again, to the fire chief. So recognizing, of course, that business continuity plans are not a legislative mandate for municipalities. I just wanted to follow up as to where we are with our business continuity plan and what stage of the game we're at and when we can expect to see a plan to be completed. I know that there was some work being done, I think, at one point in time. Can somebody speak to that?
Yep, we talk about the business continuity through our group, our EOC group with HR. We do have people working from home. We have the pre-screening for people that are coming into work. Some people are working swing shifts. Tice Road has split their shifts and they're working 10-hour days now. We really are going to adapt as numbers come in. And if we get really fortunate and we don't start losing staff, then our continuity plan really will just remain status quo. So we're really kind of waiting on see what happens with our staffing, and hopefully no one gets sick.
So there isn't a formal plan being constructed where you kind of measure some different pivotal points. So this many weeks out, this many days out, this is our next move, and so on and so forth, and what the rules and protocols would be around different scenarios. For instance, if like a good example would be at this point in time, counselors not coming into the chambers and those kinds of things. So different ways to approach different scenarios to be captured and actually put into an actual plan of sorts.
Perhaps I can answer that. I'll remind council that in fact, at the start of this outbreak 3 meetings ago, we did provide you with a document that was written by all directors and myself, indicating our assessment of our respective business units, which services we would prioritize the protection of, which we'd back off as we, through staff attrition or other key events, reduce our capacity to offer service. So you do in fact have that document. And then under the chief's leadership, we meet for roughly an hour every day and talk our way through the business continuity. You had the rough plan that we produced after a few days of self-assessment, and 5 times a week for roughly 5 hours every week, we continuously reassess. So that part is being extremely well at this point in time. The only services Pelham isn't offering that it was offering prior to the outbreak are those directly connected with the MCC. As we get into warmer weather, eventually at this rate, there'll likely be something around aquatics we won't be offering, but essentially they're all recreational related services. Otherwise, all of the other harder services, if you will, are still being offered. But we do have plans in place. We have in fact already provided them. Moreover, we're constantly looking to reassess. When we first came to you, it was gatherings of 50. Then we went 10. Now we're at 5. I don't know if we're getting down to 2 or 3, or if 5's as low as we go. But we are meeting every business day, and the chief and I have meetings on the weekends. So in fact, as between he and I, it's 7-day-a-week meetings, and it's 5 with the senior leadership team / the emergency control group. So I just want to assure council and the community that we take our business continuity extremely seriously. I'll be able to, there's part of it we're going to discuss when we're in closed session, a related component of that, but we are in constantly self-assessing and reassessing as the situation changes.
Yeah, if I could build on that a little bit, is it the unfortunate, like I said in the beginning of this, we're in uncharted waters. We have, nobody has been down this road before. This is changing by the hour. I participate in a minimum of 3 teleconferences a day with the region, the province, and the municipality, some days 4, 7 days a week. And we're constantly, and just this week, the province reduced their essential list from 74 to 44. And that right there has an impact on our business continuity. Our building department, they're no longer, new construction can no longer carry forth. They can't issue building permits anymore. So that right there has an effect. So if council would feel better, if you like me to write out some scenarios and see what we do, but I find the best game plan, or the best attack on this is as things evolve through the province, through the region, through the municipality, we as a group react to make those adjustments moving forward.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes, I've got 2 questions. You said that the compliance line is now set up to connect with bylaws and the police. Are you able to give us that number so we can pass it on to our constituents?
Yes, I will send out an email. I will send because it's depends on the hours during the day and after hours. There's 2 numbers, so I will send that out to everybody on an email.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is there's an electronic sign at Centennial Park. Are we able to use that one to get the word out?
I can answer that.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, absolutely. We'll work tomorrow with Bob and provide the language that he wishes to use
Thank you.
and get it changed.
Any other councillors? Councillor Wink.
So I'll throw this out there right now. So, City of Toronto, the mayor has said no gatherings until the end of June. Summerfest is 2.5 weeks after June 30th. So Chief, is it, in your opinion, that it's prudent to cancel Summerfest at this point in time? The reason being, we could be experiencing all sorts of costs that we will not be able to recoup. And we're not getting out of this right away. You know, like, it's not going to be a switch that comes off and says, all right, everybody go out there. Like Summerfest, you're looking at 30, 40,000 people gathering. Like, less than 3 months away.
Yeah,
Right.
Through Mr. Mayor, the statement, and it's more than just Toronto. So the end of June is the target for normal, the new normal, where anything beyond that, as far as festivals and large community events, sporting events, they feel that after that date, things will start to go back to normal and happen. But between now and June, the end of June, as the numbers come in and as things evolve, you could see a tighter timeline, or you could see a longer timeline. We could be starting to allow schools, they're saying now that schools could go back May 4th, which is just over a month. I'm just giving the information you give me.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we're going back on the 4th. I'm just telling you that the information I received today is that they're looking at possibly going back May 4th for the school. So those things are kind of the start of getting back to normal, but they're speculating that the end of June is the new normal. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. We could be September, October. I have no idea.
John, if I could, I'll ask you. You've been on that committee almost probably since the day it was formed. In your own mind, and as you've said, pretty soon you're going to be starting to tie up money and make commitments. So, in your own mind, from your past experience, what do you think would be the last cutoff date before we get into no man's land? I mean, I actually, if there's a chance of it all of having it, I hate to cancel it now, and I think it's a kind of a psychological thing on the community if we did it right now, and then it's, oh gee, now we've even lost that. Whereas if we could possibly go a little bit further out, what's your thoughts on that personally?
Well, right now, we're starting to look at expenses. So, like putting out money for expenses. So, for example, one of the items is a bylaw to establish the licenses to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. That's a big expense. Vicky, help me. How much is the liquor license for this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the licensing would be about $700 for the 4 days. So this is the key. Right now, that would be an expense that we would not get back. Right now, we are looking at anything that we are booking, any agreements, to make sure that we can either be credited for or waived fees, and so forth. Right now, through Provincial Festivals and Events Ontario, they are canceling, as Bob said, up to, well, the end of May, and now we're looking at mid-June, and it's rising to, you know, it could be up to June 30th by the end of the week. In time, yes, I can see that we may have to cancel Summerfest, Canada Day, and so forth. And that time may come. And even if the schools go back in May, who knows? And there is an opportunity to continue with a Summerfest. It will never be the Summerfest that we all know, because well, one main reason is because we rely on sponsorships. We have a very generous community, and through this time I can't imagine getting the sponsorships that we normally do, so it would be downsized enormously. But on the other hand, you don't want to just pull everything and lose hope as well. The time may come that we have to, but at this point, I would say it's premature.
So Vicky, how long does it take to get a liquor license?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this specific liquor license, it's a festival license. So that allows, if the restaurants reopen, it would be a happy day, and that would allow alcohol to go in and out on the street and back into their establishments. What they do is they extend their license as well. And that's what the agreements are about. So by not applying now, it takes 60 days. I'm sorry, Bob, it takes 60 days.
That's the answer.
Thank you, Vicky.
But if we don't get our application in queue, you will never get it, because everyone else around would be asking for the same thing.
Right.
So that's why we apply so early. We get the agreements all done. The restaurants, they do their what they need to do to make it happen. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a month. You need 60 days.
My recommendation at this point is that if you could give, if we could wait at least 10 days, if the numbers continue to go down every day, then they'll start to, province-wide, they'll start to look at things and they'll start to make some speculations. And I think, you know, the school back in May is pretty early. But who knows? Who knows what Ford will do and that. But I would think the next 10 days are really going to give us an idea of which direction we're going in.
And Councilor Wink?
So may I suggest that we revisit this again at our next council meeting in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that sounds like the prudent thing to do. Excellent. Thank you. And Councilor Hildebrand, you're on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to compliment both the fire chief and our public works director for the excellent job they're doing of having individual workers and trucks and keeping every safe in our community. The problem I have, I got a receipt and I actually saw these guys. The regional workers are taking down snow fences. They had a couple trucks with at least a half dozen workers, and they were all working in crowds, pulling out their poles and pulling out the snow fence. They're setting a bad example for the region, and I was hoping the fire chief could contact the region just to make sure that they're addressing the same things we're addressing. Because here we are doing a great job and the regional workers aren't abiding by the same rules.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, question, can you give me an approximate day that you witnessed this?
I'll have to get you that information, yeah, I will.
Because one of the, through Mr. Mayor, I meet with the region, I'm part of their EOC also, and I meet with them daily, and they talk about, they're down to single man trucks. That's what they've stated in their EOC, that they have made, Ron Tripp made that statement, they have adjusted all their vehicles to be single man trucks. So I can verify that for you.
Yeah, this was last week, so I'm not sure whether the change was made at the region at the same time we made our change. Well, I'm not sure when the rules changed. That's the problem that I'm having. But I will contact the resident and get the information what date it occurred.
Well, well, through Mr. Mayor, I don't think, you don't, unless you want to, but if you just leave it with me.
I'll just leave it with you.
Because they might have started it yesterday,
Okay.
the process. So let me get a firm answer for you, and then I'll send it to you.
No, as long as they've agreed to do the same process we're doing, that's all I'm asking for.
Yep.
Any other comments on the chief's report before we move on to the treasurer's? Not seen any. Thank you for the report, Chief, and for the answers to all of our questions today. Thank you. And we will now move on to, I believe it's the treasurer, her report on the C19 report. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to report on the financial impact of the COVID-19. So the senior staff, we have reviewed the 2020 budgets, and we've identified some budget lines where costs can be deferred and postponed to save some dollars. Additional costs have been incurred to date, and we are tracking all those costs separately. So some of those costs include extra clean supplies, additional costs for staffing, including bylaw, cleaning, and information technology, additional laptops for staff to work at home, and a new server to support access from home. Also, council has approved the write-off of interest and penalties for taxes and water, wastewater for the month of April. We have a loss of revenue at the Meridian Community Center. The net amount right now until the end of May is approximately $35,000 of lost revenue. The gross revenue is $80,000 less the savings in staff. We have been working with our bank, CIBC, to look at removing the cap that we have at our line of credit. Right now, our line of credit is at $7 million, and we can go as high as $11.3 million, which is allowable under the Municipal Act, and we just have received that approval today. So we will be bringing an amended bylaw to council for the 23rd of April for this increase. The reason why we want to do this increase is that we don't know how long that pandemic is going to be, and it's prudent for the town to be able to access the additional funds if we need it. Right now, as of today, we're not using the line of credit at all as today's date. So, but it's good to know that if we do need it, we actually have the money available. So that's what we're doing. We also have reviewed all the capital projects. So the Director of Public Works and his team have looked at all the projects to see which ones can be deferred to 2021. We have identified 2 projects right now, the Foss Road resurfacing project and the Foss sanitary projects and Sulphur Springs reconstruction. This is a total of $1.7 million of cash that we will not spend in 2020. The reason why this is important is that it frees up some cash in year for the town if we have additional expenses. Are there any questions?
Just before I turn it over to council, so Madame Quinlan, so the region, as far as taxes, you made the comment that we can only forgive so much because we do, when we collect our taxes, we collect for the region also. But I believe as we get closer to the end of April, and you'll know this because I know you meet with your fellow treasurers throughout the region is looking at possibly doing a deferral on that, or is that, obviously it's still up in the air. Any sense on that of how the fruition of that?
For you, Mr. Mayor, the treasurers are meeting on a weekly basis just to talk about the different impacts of municipalities. We haven't heard back from the region if they're going to defer the payment that we make to the region. As you're aware, when we collect the property taxes, only about 40% of the taxes that we collect goes to the town. The rest of it goes to the region and to the school boards. So the province has deferred the educational component of the taxes by 3 months, and we're just waiting to see what the region is doing. But don't forget, 40% of that is required by the town in order for us to, meet the expenses that we're incurring.
Thank you. Any questions from councilors? Councilor Hahn.
Lisa, turn on your
Sorry, we can't hear you, Lisa.
Okay, good. So this is to the treasurer. I was just taking some notes here, and at the tail end there, you were saying there's the 3 projects basically that we can defer. So it was Foss Road resurfacing, Foss Road sanitary drains, and Sulphur Springs. Is that correct? And I'm sorry, what was the total amount on that?
1.7
million. 1.7?
Yes.
7. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. And then I have one more question. Thank you for that. And this question is to the mayor. So as you're also a regional councillor, can you speak to, I guess, the intervals or what the plan is regarding meetings at the region? Are the regional councillors still meeting, and plans, I guess, for making taking some action with regards to COVID and such? I mean, so far I've heard just of the $40,000 expenditure on that campaign to stay at home, but is there anything else that you can speak to?
So as far as the meetings go, we're thinking of setting exactly what we have here up at the region. They're just this, I guess, end of last week, I had to do some speed tests on my internet to make sure that it was capable. And right now my internet is capable of, if they did do a pigeon, perhaps. But they got to do a little rebuild on my internet. I don't know how we're going to get around that. But once they find out what everybody's internet is capable of, this is exactly what we're hoping to hook up at the region. As far as more advertising, we are going to, we had very good feedback on the robocalls. So by tomorrow, I think at 12:30, Mark and I have to sit down and get another message prepared. What's today? So Tuesday. So probably by the end of the week, they're going to send out more robocalls. Get that done. Tomorrow morning, I have at 10:30, the 12 mayors are having a conference call. And on that conference call is regional transit and what else each individual municipality is doing as far as as what the chief is doing, and any other steps we can be taking to reach out to our citizens. The big thing, I think, is, like I say, we've canceled, just like the town has, the region has canceled all of our committee meetings, so nothing's happening there. The big thing will be trying to set 36 people up as we have here, and try to have the whole thing. Last time we had a meeting, we had 6 councillors that teleconferenced in, and now we're going to try to, after looking at everybody's internet, we're going to try to have all of council do exactly what we're doing. So we are trying to get under the 5 and less rule at the region. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Madame Quinlan, on that. Thank you. What have we next, Madame Clerk?
There's one more, transit.
So now, number 3 is Vicky Van Ravensway talking about Pelham Transit. Go ahead, Vicky.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yeah, you're louder. Yeah, you're loud. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, we just wanted to have an opportunity to update council on Pelham Transit. So over the past month, transit ridership has seen a drop in numbers, not only in Pelham, but basically across the region. And as a result, all transit providers across the region have altered their routes decreased transit routes, and so forth. And in our case, our reduction in transit in January, I'll just give you a couple of numbers here. In January, we had 796 riders. In February, it was 737 riders. And in March, 551. Now, basically everything was closed by, I believe it was March the 17th. So on March and we've seen a drastic drop in numbers. So on March the 23rd, we made the decision to eliminate the second Pelham bus that is provided by Coventry. And as a result, this resulted in a $20,000 a month savings, which works out to be, I mean, if we continue on till the end of the year, it would be $160,000 savings in canceling that bus. With the current one bus that we have providing the conventional route, ridership is basically ranging around between 5 and 10 riders a day, which includes the specialized transit. And it varies from day to day because not everyone goes to the same place at the same time. The service still links to the regional service in Welland. That's where we drop. And it runs from, right now, it currently runs from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 in the evening, Monday through Saturday. The link allows the connections to the region, Welland Transit, St. Catharines Transit, Niagara Falls Transit systems that basically connect to the essential services, Welland, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls hospitals, and so forth. In an effort to continue to provide this essential service, and again, last Friday, it's still an essential service, and to continue to qualify for our MTO grants and subsidies, staff is proposing the following. We're proposing to amend our current contract with Sharp Bus Lines for conventional services under uncontrollable circumstances, from providing the conventional service to provide a on-demand service. So this way we can control the money that we're spending and still provide the service. An on-demand service is booked by appointment. This is basically similar to what the region is proposing through the West Niagara proposal. The cost is $67.29 per hour with a 2-hour minimum call out. So when we receive the calls, this is the same as a specialized service that we're offering now. We tried to get more than 1 or 2 people on the bus. So then, and the other issue that we do have is distance. Because we have a small bus, we can only put no more than 4 people on the bus, and preferably 3 at a time. The proposed on-demand service will provide both the specialized and non-specialized on the same bus. So it would be the Pelham bus, which is totally accessible, would be used for this service, therefore resulting in compliance with the MTO standards. Staff would have the ability to schedule the rides at the same time, resulting in no additional costs. This on-demand service, we would propose that it would begin in a week. We would have to give the provider 48 hours, which that's what we give them now for any specialized on-demand rides. So if we began the service Tuesday, April the 14th, it would give us time to send out social media and promote the service, as well as make sure the ridership now knows to call in for their rides. And the rides, if they know that they work Monday, Tuesday, you know, their schedule, they would just call in for the same ride once, and it's booked. It isn't like they have to call every day. With this change, the estimated cost savings a year would be $52,000. So I met with the treasurer today, and we did circulate the new budget with this proposal. And perhaps I can turn it over to Teresa, and she can speak on the budget.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. So the schedule that was handed out is you had the original 2020 approved budget and what the proposed budget would be if we were to implement the on-demand service. So that would save $175,000 on the contract services for the bus. And so in total, it is $168,000 savings because we would have a reduction in other revenues of $7,000. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. The concern that we have is that, you know, we do have the agreement with the ministry on the transit, and the expectation is that we do provide a transit service in order for us to get the grant. And as you recall, the grant is $500,000 in a 5-year period. So it's important that we provide some type of service with the transit in order to get those funds.
So before I hand it over to council, just some questions to Director of Recreation. So we were going to hand it over to the region. When was, if everything hadn't hit the fan, when was that agreement supposed to take the place?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We had a teleconference last week with regard to the possible startup of the proposed system. And there's a bit of an issue. The provider requires the actual vehicles, and the manufacturer is shut down right now. So it would be at least 2 months from the time that they place the order. And depending on where this goes, we spoke tentatively, it could be September, but that is wishful thinking, I believe. So in the fall, basically.
Okay, thank you. And the other question, just on the gas tax, because we were going to go to the region anyway, we had come to some kind of agreement between us and the region that even if they took over our transit, somehow we kept getting the, not the gas tax, I guess the grant money, that we still got that, even with the region taking over the transit, right?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the plan. What we need to do is once we have a proposed agreement, we will be contacting MTO to make sure that they are approved, that we can have this type of an agreement and still receive our grant.
Okay. Great, thank you. Now allow any questions, comments from councillors. And Councillor Hahn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure this comes as no surprise because I've been harping about getting those buses off the road for a couple weeks now. So just so I'm clear then, the Director of Recreation, Vicki, so we would be still using then the current bus, but it would be by appointment. So we still would have just one client on board the bus then at any particular time, or we're still going to fill up the bus to, I guess you said it was a maximum of 4 riders. It's just that instead of making the entire route, he's only going to specific locations to pick up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, exactly. We would be coordinating the appointments so that there would be one call out if possible. basically, normally what happens on a on-demand, which we do offer now, we would pick up the client would need to go to the bank or to the drugstore or wherever, and the bus would wait and take them back, or they would pick up, actually prior to COVID-19, we would pick up, up to 4 or 5 clients along the route and drop them all off at their particular rides or destinations. And then we would go back and pick them up, and we would try to do that within the call out period. So it's very efficient.
So further to that, as far as efficiency and as far as saving our grant and such, I'm shocked, actually. It's really unfathomable to me that the concern right now is saving grant money, saving money when we are in a pandemic. We've declared a state of emergency, and still it's coming down to the dollars and cents of making sure we have a bus, because we need to please MTO at this point in time. I would hope it's only a matter of time until our province makes a decision that will restrict small towns like ourselves from having transit. It is, according to your current ridership numbers that you just provided, we're looking at 5 plus, I guess, specialized, so a maximum of 10 per day, folks that are using it. And we know at this point, it's very unlikely they're using it to go to doctor's appointments. As we know, doctor's appointments have, their offices have long been closed. We also know that we have a myriad of services that we can have delivered to our homes, from groceries to pharmaceuticals to even hardware store supplies. Home Depots and such will deliver. So whatever it is that somebody requires can be delivered for the most part. And if they can't afford the delivery fee, we have kind people, a group that we know of as the Pelham Support Network, who will volunteer to do those deliveries for free for people who are in desperate need of essentials. So I guess at this point in time to request that we stop our transit, because we're still putting multiple people on a bus. We're still not solving the problem that I see, and that is we're still putting upwards of 4 people on a bus. And if you look at a 6-foot radius on a short bus, and you've got your driver and you back up 6 feet and the radius and so on and so forth, it's if you've measured it out and we can get 4 on board, so be it. But wow, this is a minimum standard right now is 6 feet. That's the minimum you want to be away from somebody. That's not the maximum. That's the minimum. There's definitely within the medical community and scientific community, they're talking that probably 10 would even be more ideal. But here we are still working to fill up the bus, and
Wait a minute. I gotta interrupt this. I'm sorry, Counselor. We are not running the service so we can use the grant money up. We are running the service because the neediest people in this town that do not have the privilege of having a car, that do not have a license, they are using our service. I think that's a heck of a thing to say, that accuse our staff that we're looking at grant money. That is not why this service has been said to be an essential service by the province. It's not just us.
When you're claiming the neediest people in town, I'm just curious, where is it that you're suggesting that they're going, that they couldn't get things delivered or such? Where is it you're suggesting that they have to go during a pandemic that is so important they go to? Can you give me some suggestions?
I'm sorry, I haven't gone out on the bus myself. The handicapped that are probably by themselves, so you would have to actually go on the bus and ask them. I haven't done a personal toll. All I know is that people in the know that I think know what they're doing in bigger cities and across the province have called public transit an essential service. Where are they going? I have no idea. I'm sorry I can't answer that trivial question. But the fact is, I'm sorry, but health people have given their okay on this. So say what you want. I'm sorry, you've got your opinion, and I'm going to let you go ahead again, but please don't tell us that we're trying to get the grant money. That is not what we're doing it. We're providing a service for the neediest people of this town. Thank you. Go on.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so as I was saying, so if we're going to continue, transit at this time, I would expect, and I was anticipating that we would have a lot fewer people on board the bus than still putting 4 on board. Again, from an emergency management standpoint, the goal is, as per the mayor's own campaign, is to stay at home. And for those people that absolutely must go out, I guess I would look to our group, our emergency control group, to work with the volunteers that we already have out there. And I'm sure there's many other volunteers to come up with some solutions for those 5 people that need to get out of their house each day. And for whatever reason, I'm sure they have some legitimate reasons to leave their house. I absolutely do believe that to be true. But I think that in an effort to encourage people, which is what the whole idea of reducing people from touch points for transmission at this point in time, as we're during a pandemic, this is not business as usual. And I am just blown away by the fact that we are still working towards putting a small town. We are not Toronto. We are not suggesting, I hope, that everybody on board, those 5 people on board each day, are working to get to the hospital. I asked earlier today the director of recreation how long it would take an individual to get from Fenwick to the Welland Hospital. You're looking at an hour and a half. And so it's doubtful that we're looking at probably a nurse that's going to be standing out waiting for her bus and several connections to get there. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. Same thing would go with from Fenwick to the St. Catherine's Hospital. We're looking up upwards, I think, of maximum there of 2 hours and 2 hours and a half. I think is something like that is what we provided. So again, is it probable that it's a nurse that's waiting to get to the hospital? Or are we preventing a nurse to get to the hospital? It's possible. Is it probable? No. So I would be looking to put forward a motion to immediately cease transit during this COVID-19 pandemic, and recommend that our control group work with our community volunteer groups to provide necessary transport to this very small group of people that are in dire need of transport.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions from any councillors? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Recreation. Is it possible we can, with this call-in service that you're recommending, obviously they call in to say where they want to be picked up from. Do you also record where they're being delivered to? And the other second question I have on that is, do we have notices on the bus, on the system, indicating, proper seating, proper distancing, and all those types of things?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. We have the notices, as well as the bus gets cleaned, sanitized every hour and a half, or when between riders. As well, one thing that has come up that I didn't have a chance to mention, as well as at this time there's no carpooling as well, which has limited. We used to always have the neighbor driving the other, neighbor around to get to where they need to go, and that's not allowed now either. It's basically whoever you live with is allowed. So yes, we do keep the riders at a distance, and by going this route, this is an opportunity to also control how many are getting on the bus and where they're going.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you actually keep that as a record? So as we go down the road, whatever route we're going on, I guess it depends on the fire chief and the SLT group that meets with regards to emergency management, that we'll have an idea of further plans we should have depending on where the process is going.
Yes, absolutely. We keep data every day. We need the data for the CUDA reporting, annual reporting on basically how many people we're picking up. We are looking at the time period, when they're picked up, where they're picked up, and basically we don't always know where we dropped one person off to another, but we know that we're dropping and picking up in certain areas.
Is that all, Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to ask further, Director of Recreation, with regard to sanitizing. So you're sanitizing the bus, that's being done every hour and a half, you said. So it's not between riders, it's just at the strike of the clock, so to speak.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the bus driver sanitizes the bus between riders or every hour and a half. So whatever comes first.
Okay. I just to add to that, I just think that as we forward think, I just wouldn't want us at this juncture to not feel confident in our decisions. That rather it's important to make the decisions that when we look forward through lessons learned, for example, that we're going to be proud of the decisions we made and not wonder if we didn't do enough at this juncture. We know obviously it's very much community transmission. To think it's just people that are coming back from holidays is no longer the case. So because it's community transmission, and we aren't, I don't think we should be comparing ourselves to a large city. Other cities, and I've never claimed to speak to the region or any other city. I'm a municipal councillor in Pelham, and so I'm concerned about Pelham's safety. So at this juncture, I continue with my motion.
Councillor, have you got a seconder for you? Oh, wait, Councillor Wink.
So I understand what you're saying, Councillor Hahn. Would it be ease things a little bit if we restrict the number of riders on the bus to 3, not 4, so there's that little bit more separation, and we revisit this in a couple of weeks when we have some more data on who's going where and why and when. So I'd hate like heck to pull the rug out from underneath the citizens at this point in time if there's an actual need. If we find out that there isn't a need, then I can buy in with what you're saying. But I think we need some more data. Let's limit the ridership and be cautious. I agree with you. These are desperate times. But because it's desperate times, you don't necessarily want to pull the rug out from someone who's in a wheelchair or doesn't have the means to get to certain places. So let's find out where they're going and report back in a couple of weeks.
So actually,
wait, if I can interrupt just for a second, we're on a curfew here, so just before we'll continue this discussion in 2 seconds, we have to do the curfew thing. I got a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn, that the rules of procedure as contained in the Town of Pelham Procedure Bylaw be suspended, and that the specified meeting curfew time of 9 p.m. be and is hereby waived, and that the remainder of the business listed on the agenda for this meeting continue to be considered until, and I don't think we have that much more, so let's go with all matters have been concluded, if that's okay with council. Any comments on this? If not, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor of extending curfew? Thank you. Any opposed? Curfew's extended. Councillor Hahn, you had the floor.
Yes, to continue to answer Councillor Wink's question, you had asked about as far as the ridership and where we're going and that kind of thing and how many people are using it. So I'm going to actually ask that again to Vicki and the Director of Recreation. We had some correspondence earlier today, and he provided me some numbers, and they were basically around 5 people per day, but the certain days maybe upwards of 10. So that was for, and I don't have, unfortunately, the time frame in front of me just the second, so perhaps you do. So for how many days or weeks do we know that it's been on average about 5 to 10 people?
Well, basically since the 23rd of March.
Okay, so that's
so it's only been 2 weeks, basically. Yeah, there was a significant drop once the students stopped, and we had closures. So basically, this is one way to control our costs until, we don't know. The next announcement from the province may say, cancel it, and it's no longer an essential service. This way, we are providing our due diligence, and we're limiting our expenditures, and we can control how many people are getting on the bus and when, because we book them.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Hahn's motion as well as Councillor Wink's suggestion that possibly over the next week or two, we gather the data and then finalize the decision. I agree. We don't want to spread the virus around the town. And I think the bus is not the ideal way of transporting people. However, I know that people depend on it, but if we could get some more information of where the pickup and delivery is, and we can possibly come up with another alternative, that's what I would be in favor of.
Thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Stewart?
Could we possibly add signage to the buses to explain to any of the current riders what the alternatives are for them rather than going out? As far as calling the drugstore, calling the grocery store, and having a friend or a neighbor pick up. I know we needed a prescription last week, and the drugstore didn't even want us to come to the store to get it.
Yeah.
Not even front door service. So there's really no need to go to the drugstore. They will bring it to you, no charge. And, if we can get the signage out on the buses for the people that use it to explain the availability of all the options they have, that might help.
Mm-hmm. Director, is that possible?
That is not an issue. In fact, if we go with this system, number one, we will save costs immediately, and we will be speaking to each rider to let them know. Now, right now, I know that I would believe that most of the riders that we have, they are going to work, and we're picking them up from work. I know that there is at least 1 or 2 a week that we're bringing in from Welland, and they're going to look out.
Vicky, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I would suggest, if you're going to do this, I would recommend that you screen them before you let them on. So we have that employee screen questionnaire, and that driver, whoever, should be screening every person before he lets them on. And if he gets a yes to anything, they don't get on the bus.
Actually, we already have a sign on the bus as they come in, and the driver is asking.
Yeah, it's good because
the sign is on the door before the door opens.
But it's critical that they actually engage in a conversation, because I went to the bank this week, the Royal Bank, and I had to answer a whole bunch of questions before they let me in the bank. I went to the liquor store yesterday. That's the first time I went there in a month, but I went there yesterday and I had to answer a whole bunch of questions before they let me in the front door. So I think it'd be prudent that our bus drivers, if we're going to let people on the bus, that they answer the questions.
Thank you, Chief, and I commend you that was only once a month that you go to the liquor store. Thank you. And if we're done the discussion, Councillor Hahn, you have a motion. Do you want to proceed with that motion?
I do.
Okay, and do you have a seconder for that motion? I see Councilor Hildebrand.
I made an amendment to that motion, though.
And the amendment being?
Well, not to cancel it immediately, but to gather some data and make sure, like the fire chief indicated, that we have the questions and a sign like Councilor Stewart mentioned, placed on the bus, indicating the options for these bus riders.
I'll go back to Councilor Hahn to see if she will accept that amendment, first of all.
So I guess my point is to reduce the number of people that are on board a bus touching several surfaces, and that we can't guarantee, even if somebody is wiping it down, that it's sanitized, as well as the fact that it's a minimum of 6 feet. And we're right probably on the line there. So it's getting less people on that bus, and I don't see how that will be achieved. So no.
Okay, so if, so that amendment, I want to get back to the clerk. So can Lisa, being the mover, she can, I'm sorry, Councilor Hahn can reject that amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, right now, I don't have a seconder for the motion. I just would like to clarify to the members of council what the motion, as I understood it from the councillor, is. It's a motion to immediately cease the transit, Pelham Transit during this COVID-19 pandemic, and that the control group work with the community to provide transportation to the people in need. That was the motion that was stated by the councillor.
To work with our community volunteer groups to devise a plan to provide necessary transport for that small group of people, which is about 5 to 10 people per day that need to, dire need to get from A to B. So be it, absolutely. But there has to be another way. There has to be a better way.
Okay, thank you. So you're looking for a seconder for the motion then? So is there a seconder for Councilor Hahn's motion? Okay, Councilor Hildebrand.
I thought, through you, Mr. Mayor, I was making an amendment to that motion, and that would be voted on first.
I'll go back to the clerk.
So we have a motion on the floor. It needs to be, in order for it to be on the floor to be amended, it needs to be seconded. So now if you're seconding the motion of the councillor, it's on the floor and open for amendment.
Okay, Councilor Hildebrand.
I will second the motion then.
Okay, thank you. So discussion on the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Councilor Hildebrand.
Per the discussion that we've had, and per the comments made by Councillor Wink and Councillor Stewart, I think pulling it immediately, I would like to delay that till the next couple of weeks. And the second thing, I'd like to post a notice on the bus for alternatives. I'd like to make sure we find out we know where the pickup is and delivery points are, so we can analyze that data. And then in 2 weeks, we'll review where we're at.
Okay, does he need a seconder?
He does.
Yes, you need a seconder on that amendment.
Oh, David wants to speak there.
But let's get a seconder first on the amendment, please. Is there a seconder for Councilor Stewart? Is that you? You're a seconder? Okay, thank you. And Mr. CAO, comments? Oh. A microphone, please. Nope, can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep, there you go.
Grips for the win. Staff are, as always, happy to comply with any direction of council. Allow me to just identify, though, the issue with how this is currently structured. If we can come back to you on May 4th, we can come back to you with some amount of real data. As it is, we're not able to, we'd be implementing this new system next week on the 14th. Your next meeting is on the 20th. You understand the problem with our reporting deadlines. Yeah. Even assuming we waive them and just came with a verbal report, the very best we could humanly do is 6 days of data, not even a week. And that's assuming we could get data from the day prior, on the Monday. I don't know that that's possible at all. So I would just like to suggest we come back to you on May 4th. I appreciate that's the better part of a month, but we're talking about a system that's not going to start until next week, the 14th. And we could have 2 weeks of data that takes you to the 28th. And then on the 4th, we could report to you and you could make a decision then based on some actual data, a couple of weeks of it.
Thank you for that. That seems kind of convoluted. If we vote for the motion and the motion gets put through, then we won't have to worry about that anyway, I guess. Anyway, so first of all, on the amendment that we now have a seconder for, on the amendment put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, is there any discussion or questions? Does everyone understand the amendment?
Through you, Mr. Clerk, Mr. Mayor, the clerk needs to understand if it's April 2nd or April 20th or May the 4th, please.
Councillor, did you have a date? Are you willing to go with the CAO on that or not?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. May I speak to one other issue?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
The region comes down with another ruling that bus services is canceled.
Yeah.
I hope that just is an automatic process that occurs through the town municipal office. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir, it is. We followed all.
You just turned your mic off.
You just turned the mic off, sir. You're waving your hands too much. Could you repeat what you just said? No, louder.
Let's try that.
There you go. Thank you.
My computer keeps, anytime it logs me out of the audio. I don't know why. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. We're happy to comply. We always comply with the province's instructions. All their instructions thus far have happened between council meetings, and we've acted on those without the direct approval of council, but on the authority of the provincial government. We will continue to do so if trans is deemed non-essential, or regardless, it's ordered shut down, even if it is essential, we will comply instantaneously.
Okay. Any other comments on the amendment to the motion? Okay. Not seeing any, then I'll call the vote on the amendment.
So can you read that amendment back, please?
Okay. Just a second, Madam Clerk.
That stopping the transit operations be delayed and that staff report back to council on the usage for the ridership, and that appropriate notices be posted on the bus for alternatives to transportation. The report to come back May 4th.
So I have a trouble here. We got an amendment that says to delay, but it's to a motion that says immediately shut it down. So how can that work?
So if the amendment, Mr. Mayor, is to replace the word with immediately, then the amendment would be to postpone and take out the word immediately and replace it with this.
So then the motion now would be to replace it with this one also.
So the original motion stated to immediately cease the transit.
Yeah.
I believe the amendment would be to replace the word immediately with what I just read for you.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment as put forward by Councillor Hildebrand. So any other questions? Councillor Hahn.
Through you, Mayor. So I just didn't want the rest of the motion to be forgotten about, so that I'd asked that the town control group work with their community volunteer groups to provide the necessary transport to this small group of people that are in need of transportation. So that's the other half of the motion that I made.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the only word that would be replaced is immediately.
Okay, so on the amendment put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, any other discussion? Not seeing any, I call the vote. All those in favor on the amendment? Okay, yep, amendment carries. Oh, all those opposed on the amendment? Okay, the amendment carries. And then on the motion, which is not immediately anymore.
That's right. So it's now the motion as amended. So it's the original motion as stated, except replacing the word immediately with the motion you just passed.
Okay. Any questions on the motion then, as amended? Okay, not seeing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion as amended?
I thought we just did that.
No, you voted on the amendment. And now we're voting on the motion.
For the amendment again.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my mistake then. We're voting on the motion as amended.
So just for some clarity for the councillors. So the original motion said to immediately cease. The amendment was to wait a few weeks and do some testing and reporting and report back May 4th. So that amendment replaced the word immediately. Now we're voting on the original amendment with all of the councillors' other requests in her main motion, but with this new time frame and reporting back for May 4th. So it's the motion by Councillor Hahn as amended to report back May 4th.
So instead of being as an immediately shut down the transit, it's with the amendment overrides it. Oh, and you guys all timed out.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there you are, maybe.
Can you still hear us? Uh-oh. Crap.
If you can hear us, we can't hear or see you. The clerk is working on it.
Must have timed out the session. Crap. We might have lost we might be out of time on Zoom.
Oh, really?
Oh, they're all here. I think it's because this screen was okay, so what if I turn those off and back on again? Let's try that. Nope.
What are you thinking?
No, I think I got it.
No? Doing your magic.
Yeah, with Mike. Nope. Wait for a minute. All right. Podium. Oh, what was that? That's us.
A big order
Oh,
amendment.
there we go.
Perfect.
Okay, hello everyone. Sorry about that.
We got it?
Okay, we're back. So we are voting on the motion. We voted on the amendment, passed the amendment. Now we're voting on the motion.
As amended.
As amended. Any questions or comments on the motion as amended before us now? Is that Councillor Stewart?
Yeah, I just wanted to check. I couldn't hear it perfectly clearly when it was being read out, but it does include that there'll be a maximum ridership of 3 people per bus.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was not included in any of the amendments, but I know that staff is aware of that, so staff could take that as a direction. Ms. Van Ravensway is nodding.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those on the motion as amended? All those against? Motion as amended passes. Okay, next we have a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Presentation and consideration of bylaws. Be resolved that the council of the town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Excuse me. Bylaw 1, Bylaw 4218-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into agreements with 5 establishments licensed by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario that are situated within the Summerfest licensed area. Those establishments being namely the Butcher and Banker Fond Hill Inc., Root and Bone 1856 Social Limited, OA Hillfire Smoke and Barbecue, Gelato Village and Cane and Cattle Beer Works, for the purposes of obtaining a special occasion permit for the Summerfest event to be held on Friday, July 17th and Saturday, July 18th, 2020, and to repeal bylaw number 4095-2019. Second, bylaw 4220-2020, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended for lands located on the south side of Quaker Road, west of Kevin Drive, municipally known as 1084 Quaker Road, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, by changing the zoning from the R1-26 Residential 126 zone to the R1-298 Residential 1-298 zone. Town of Pelham, file number AM-01-20, bylaw 4221-2020, being a bylaw to establish an administrative monetary penalty system for non-parking related offenses and to amend all bylaws referenced in Schedule A. Bylaw 4222-2020, being a bylaw to amend Environmental Protection Bylaw 3357-2013 to prohibiting and regulating the placing or dumping of fill within Pelham. Bylaw 4223, 2020, being a bylaw to regulate open-air burning in the town of Pelham, and to repeal and replace bylaw number 3160, 2010. Any questions, comments about any of the preceding bylaws? Not seen. Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just with regards to the first bylaw, which has to do with Summerfest and the licensing, I assume the Director of Recreation will take into account the comments we made. I'm prepared to approve all these bylaws, but realizing the schedule and the time that we're in.
Yeah? Yes. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. I can't hear Bob at all. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we'll work on his computer. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion to receive the verbal reports on the COVID-19 was not voted on. We went to the motion with regard to transit. So if you could just read that one into the record, please.
Okay, sorry, my fault. So we have a motion put forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive the following verbal presentations regarding the impacts on the town of Pelham from COVID-19 for information from Chief Limburner, Community Emergency Management Coordinator, Teresa Quinlan, Financial Impacts, and Vicky Van Ravensway, Pelham Transit. Any questions on these verbal reports? Not seeing any. I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor of receiving? And any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Now let's go to closed session.
Motion put forward by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider matters under Section 239 of the Municipal Act as follows. Section 239 2D, Labor Relations or Employee Negotiations, one item. Any comments on this motion? Not seeing any. I'll call it. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So members of council, I just need to take off the live stream and the recording, and then we will.
So that's David doing the presenting. Yes.